Oh, who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
Hello and welcome to Wolves Fancast. It is Matt, Greg, Gav and Luke, and we are here to talk about the very, very disappointing defeat to Burnley at home this evening. Just before we go ahead, make sure you're following on at Wolves Fancast on the socials and subscribe so you don't miss any of the action, as it could be a busy few days over at Fancast Towers and across the Wolves social medias, I imagine. We are in partnership with the Sports Social Podcast Network, fcquiz.app, and the T-Mill store is open as well for your Fancast t-shirt. Needs some really good designs on there. So, gents, before we get into it this evening, I want to just put some attention to the comment section already in the chat, because there's a consistent feel amongst the fan base at the moment. And what we're going to do is try and get through as many comments as physically possible this evening. So if you want to get in touch, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, get your comments in. We'll go through as many as we can, and we'll try to answer as many as we can during the chat as well to get us going. So, gents, as the build-up to the game happened, or as always, we kind of start talking about the lineups and things like that. Two changes with it. Hoover, I think, is obviously the elephant in the room there, who came in for this game. Bellegarde also. Gav, from your point of view, the right back, right wing back, right full back, depending on what system we're playing, Tombola keeps going. And on this occasion, I mean, it clearly didn't work. But at the time, what were your thoughts when you saw that lineup?
I think, like you said, the question mark was with that right back situation. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't remember who started last week. Was it? I think it was Doc that started last week, wasn't it? And then obviously he came off, and then Hoover came on.
Well, there's loads of options, but nothing seems to stick.
No, I think that's the issue at the minute, is that we just keeps. I mean, I think we started the season with Rodrigo Gomez, and it was Doc, and now we've got Hoover. Obviously, we've got Chichua as well. But I think the weird thing about Hoover is that he has, Pereira started him throughout the whole of preseason. That was his number one right back. As soon as the season came around, he's completely binned him off. Now, all of a sudden, the past two games, he's brought him back in the fold. So, how much has he improved in training for him to be, back in the mix is what I want to know.
Yeah, agreed. Luke, from your point of view, the big omission being João Gomez omitted from the starting 11. Obviously, Andre playing, but that midfield, as mentioned, there was a João Gomez-shaped hole throughout the game almost. Was it a surprise to you that he didn't start?
Yeah, I thought when I saw the lineup, I thought this is just a team that's been picked by a guy who just doesn't even care about his employment status. It's a must-win game, and you've dropped arguably our best player. Somebody who will win the ball back. I don't know. He's lost his head, mate. He's lost his head. I'm just looking at the lineup now and looking at the bench. Like, please excuse my ignorance. Is Doherty injured?
Not sure if he's injured at present, but this lineup as it stands, with the options that are available to him, I think the inconsistency of that back line is really starting to cause problems. And Greg, from your point of view, looking at listen, football isn't played on paper. Jose said that himself. This team, though, let's not talk about results. Let's not talk about form. This team on paper, does it beat Burnley's team on paper, in your opinion?
I'm not sure about that. What I will say is that I absolutely agree with Luke. When I saw this come out, myself and my lad who I go to the games with said that this is a manager who wants to get sacked. This is a team that he's putting out of a manager that doesn't want to be here. He's kind of looking for someone to kind of put him out of his misery. And let's be clear, if he resigns, he probably doesn't get the same payout as if he gets sacked. So I think that's you know, a variable that's there. I think that you can mess around at the top of the pitch sometimes. You can try different strikers, different things. Good teams tend to have a consistent back four and goalkeeper, and we've had none of that. You look at the, you know, and I know you didn't ask about the goalkeeper situation, but that for me is part of that defence. And we start the season with Johnston, then Sarr's back in, then Johnston's back in, right? And I think he should have done better for the first goal personally. But you look at that back four, he's flip-flopping. Gav, you said quite rightly, Hoover played, and I went to a lot of those, unfortunately, pre-season games, didn't pull up any trees, looked like a championship standard right back. That's what he did. We then went and got Chachua, who, considering he's apparently the fastest player in the Premier League, doesn't run with the ball. He just passes it straight back to the centre-half from where it came. So he's flip-flopping all over the place. He's trying to, I can see a comment saying clutching at straws. I think that's a really good phrase. No, they're trying to get ideas, trying to work out what's going on. And it's there. I'm not surprised by Joe Gomez either. Obviously, he was critical of Gomez in the presser. And generally, when he's critical of a player in the presser, it tends to mean he gets dropped. So yeah, I think it's it's been a real problem, and not having a consistent back four is really starting to hurt us now. Players don't know who they're playing with, how it sits. And you can't build.
Strand Larson was our 5th captain of the season today. You know, we've not even had Halloween, and we've gone through 5 captains, more captains than wins.
More captains than points, alone wins.
Up until the 42nd minute, same amount of captains as goals in the league. Like, come on, lad.
Yeah,
come on.
Do you think, Luke, that has any bearing in 2025 on a team's performance setup? You coach, you manage and coach and everything in the grassroots game. In 2025, does that have an impact as much as we probably think as football, maybe purists, or harking back to older days of football gone by? Does it have as much of an impact, do you think, on the modern game?
On the pitch, maybe not, but off the pitch, I still think there's a role to play in like having like your leadership groups and all that sort of stuff that, you know, we'll get the lads together. Whether, I don't know, even if they want to piss about in the changing rooms and, you know, you're spinning the wheel for your fine and all that sort of stuff. But what is our leadership group? Because he mentioned a leadership group in just before the season started, and then Totti wasn't in that leadership group, but then Totti was captain or something like that. And he's like, what is going on at this club?
I had a message earlier saying, a reminder at the start of the season, the leadership group of the team was announced: Sarr, Totti, Gomez and Doc. Game 9, and not one of them is starting. So, I mean, when we talk about identity and we talk about leadership and we talk about, you know, heads on a swivel on the pitch that can lead and motivate, it's clearly not happening, and there's something very wrong within the mentality there, I guess, of the team. I mean, the comments are absolutely echoing this as well, from, you know, no dressing room, no morale, to the whole squad is utterly useless, and then Elon bringing a squad of Tesla robots, Elon's burner account. We will talk about the game in the first half of this pod, and then I think in the second half we'll talk about where to pin the blame on this, really, and how long. Not to quote Mick McCarthy, but, you know, it can't go on like this. Cue everybody's Yorkshire accents, but it can. But we want to, you know, actually give an opportunity to others to have a say as well. Speaking of which, Noka's joined us this evening. Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon. Good evening, lads. How are we doing?
Not too bad, thank you. Yourself?
Not too good.
I'm splendid. I've got a cold. I've just been to Molyneux and seen that, and it's so frustrating, isn't it? Just. Yeah,
it is. Well, let's compound your misery even further, and let's talk about the first goal then. So, out of nowhere, a pass across from the left-hand side of the field in towards the striker. It's Fleming, was it? And he's hit it first time. Now, there's a few fingers you can point there. I want to talk about the goalkeeper first, Noka, and your take on Johnston in this scenario. Was he at fault for this? Was he asleep for it? was it just one of those things where nobody really expected it to be hit first time and he's been caught out? What was your thoughts on it?
Was that to me? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few things. The cover was shocking, I think. You know, the guys just waltzed through the middle. I think was it Bueno, and it was a great finish. I mean, he hit it for the first time. I'm in the South Bank right in front of me, and he thought, God, it's a good finish. And down to Johnson's right. And yeah, he probably could have got down to save it, but for me, it was a great finish straight to the corner.
On watching it back, annoyingly, I think it's almost more of it's an easier pill to swallow when you see the goal back on the highlights. From where you in the same again in the South Bank, from where you see it, you just think it was lazy from Hoover and it's bad from Johnson. But it is such a sweet finish, and it sort of takes the edge off. I know that sounds like it's just one of those goals where we've been caught out for an amazing ball from the left-hand side of the field, from the far side, and it's come in and it's been struck sweetly. But I mean, the second goal, Noka, I mean, I've watched it back now on the highlights about 10 times on the build-up to this, and I've seen big budget horror films that haven't given me the jeeps like this, because it's just awful to watch, because I just see that there's no one tracking, not one, not two, but three runners. I mean, this one is the unforgivable of the three, I think. What do you say?
No, I agree. And this is the thing with the Pereira. It's what are we doing? Are we going man for man marking? We're going zonal marking. We don't seem to be doing either of the two. And this is one of my big gripes with the way we play. You know, what's our style? What's our method? What's our approach to a game? And we just constantly seem to be caught in two minds, whether it's attacking, defending, or in the midfield, all across the pitch. I just wish we'd pick one method and do it well, rather than try and do a number of things and get caught between them. Yeah,
no, I completely agree. Listen, no, I could really appreciate having you on for that, mate. We've got a couple of other people that want to jump in, and Danny's waiting patiently in the chat for us as well. Gav, from your point of view, the second goal, that for me was the real killer in the game, because at 1-0 anything can happen and we can get back. It doesn't feel away from us at that point in time. Even the grumbling from the crowd was one thing, but that 2-0 was the killer. That was the momentum killer in the game, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the problem is in the game, even at 1-0, we weren't really creating much, but you can score a goal out of anything, can't you? You could have one chance and you could score straight away. The second goal, being 2 goals down, all of a sudden you've got to double the amount of chances you're having, and at that point we weren't creating anything. So, being 1-0 down was bad enough. So being 2-0 down was, like you said, nail in the coffin sort of thing at that point. But it was the reaction of the fans and everything, wasn't it, as well? It was the worst thing that could happen in that game was going 2-0 down. Anyone can go 1-0 down, 2-0 down. You've given yourself a mountain to climb, haven't you? And I'm sure you'll go into the goal and the mistakes that were made. But I think it's just the defending in it all as well. Just a calamity, isn't it?
It really was. It really was. I mean, Luke, from your point of view, if that had come from your lads, what kind of punishment are we talking? I mean, are we dragging them out into the street? We're making them clean the boots? What? I mean, it's unforgivable, that second goal for me.
It just sums us up our defending all season now, doesn't it? I mean, when you look at the goals that we've conceded at home already this season, we've already conceded a 4, 2 to West Ham in the Cup, 3 to Everton, 3 against Leeds, 3 again today against Burnley. It's just not good enough, is it? We've played 2 of the promoted teams at home this season, and no disrespect to these promoted teams, because they are where they are on merit, and nobody can take that away from them. But to concede 6 goals at home to 2 promoted teams this early in the season, for me, it's just not good enough, and it just shows that we haven't learned from any of the past mistakes of the last 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months or whatever. Because it's repetitive behaviours now, which it's got to be a concern. Why isn't it changing? Especially when Vitor's come in as a coach who's known as a defensive coach, and keeping it tight and being a bit pragmatic and all that nonsense. And we're shipping in the goals that we're conceding at home as well. For me, your home ground has to be your fortress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no.
The teams are coming in, they're rolling us over. You know, we're having our bellies tickled, and a couple of fist pumps to the South Bank ain't going to change how we're defending.
Agree completely. Greg, I want to ask you that, you know, one of the tweets, because there's loads of tweets that are flying out at the moment, out kind of in real time as we're doing this. And one of them was around that Fosun have kind of maybe only understood now, 9 games in, that the promoted teams are perhaps more competitive than they have been in many seasons. And, you know, it couldn't have been 3 seasons in a row where the top or the promoted 3 sides went down. Are we giving teams too much respect on the pitch at the moment, like these promoted teams? They felt during the game a lot of times where, and it's really easy to go, oh, just pass it forward. And it doesn't work like that, because if you're poor defensively, you don't want to lose possession of the ball and then risk a counter-attack or whatever. Yeah. But how did we have the confidence of an established Premier League side versus Burnley, I guess is the question today.
I think the problem is more not so much us, it's them. Not so much them, it's us, right? That's the problem. If we start talking and comparing ourselves, and that's not the issue. The issue is us as a team, our patterns of play, how we set ourselves up, the squad. What is our identity? What is the plan? I can't see a plan. There's no tempo. You're a home team. You're going to go onto it. I know I'm kind of skipping ahead slightly, but I just want to use this as an example. We get to 2-2. We then switch to a back 5. So we're not, at that point, we're going more defensive. So we've gone from a back 4 to a back 5 at that point. So that's on us. That's not other teams. I mean, the warning signs should have been there when you look at Sunderland. You know, they're bringing in experienced Premier League players. They're bringing in players, right? They're not going to go, oh, we're going to pick a few out the Championship and hopefully 1 or 2 will land, which is what Ipswich and some of the others have done, right? They're buying all the youngsters out of the other academies, Man City's academy or wherever, Chelsea's academy, and they're just going to hopefully we'll get a diamond. You know, they've bought people that have known, understand the league, understand what's going on, and they've got fitted into an identity and a purpose. I mean, you look at Bournemouth, they took out 3 out of their back 4, right? This summer, they've sold 3 out of their back 4, you know, defenders, Cares and so on. And yet, where are they in the league? Because they have a plan, they have an identity, a pattern of play, and a style that the players fit into. We don't have that, and I think it's an easy way out to start going, "Oh, Burnley, this." No. Our problem is us, right? Our problem is we've got no intensity, right? And that's why we're booing, because we're just going side to side, right? There's no intensity there. That's what we as a club are about, right? Intensity, moving forward. We don't have that. Some of the players I don't think are fit enough for a 90-minute game, which is crazy in the Premier League, and I think that's a prerequisite, right, for any footballer.
Yeah,
I think fitness levels are there, and I think that for me is the issue. Is that you tell me what our identity is, how we want to play.
That's fair.
Anyone in the chat, anyone who wants to tell me, because I can't. You know, we're at the end of October, and I couldn't tell you.
I mean, from the chat at the moment, there's a lot of talk about player attitude, player morale, and as I say, the second half. 30 minutes onwards, we're going to kind of do a bit of a deep dive into why it's going the way it is. Gav, you look like you got something to say about the attitude of the team on the pitch at the minute, mate.
Yeah, I think it's hard at the moment, because you can see some people, you know, and I'm sure you'll touch on it later, but like some of the tweets that some of the players have come out with after the game. You know, some players do care. You know what I mean? João Gomez is the one I'm referencing there. But it's a collective thing, isn't it? You know what I mean? If one cog's, you know, not aligned, the machine isn't going to work, isn't it? At the end of the day. But like, just going back onto what Greg was saying, I think he was right in everything he was saying. I think the problem started last season in regard to the pattern of play. I think even when we were winning games, there wasn't really a pattern of play then, but we didn't really say anything because we were just so, you know, grateful for the wins to get us out of trouble that we didn't really question it at that point. We were just, you know, with every win that was coming, we were just taking it as it comes. But even when you look back then, there wasn't really that 5 winning game period. I didn't really see a style of playing that, to be perfectly honest. So I feel that's just trickled into this season. And to be honest, I know Greg said he went to all the preseason games. I saw the warning signs in preseason, to be quite honest. They're going forwards, couldn't see nothing that was going on. You know, I've kind of disregarded most of preseason up until the Celta Vigo game, where I was like, okay, this is the game where, okay, if they've been shitting all the other games, that's fine. They've got to turn up in this one because the league campaign starts the week after. And they were awful on that. So for me, this has been an ongoing issue since the back end of last season.
Yeah. Okay. What we're going to do, we're going to bring in Danny P to the fanfare of the chat as well, who've been very excited, I must say, about Danny P's arrival. So Danny, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, all. Yes, I'm not the Danny P. I'm a bit taller than that.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, well, it's funny enough that Danny P has been a lot of talk about as well over the last couple of days. Feels like some insider trading has been going on to try and get the odds up on your various betting accounts. But I'm going to give you a slightly nicer job than talking about the defeat and just to kind of talk about the goals at first. So obviously, Strand Larsen with the penalty, it just felt like he was going to miss or not score because it just felt like it just had to happen, but he did. He got the goal back, and then we had a foothold in the game, or did we? What did you think at that moment in time? Did you think that we could get on, put a foot forward?
I agree. I was not convinced that it was going to go in, and even after it did, I wasn't convinced that it was going to lead to much more because our trouble has been scoring from open play and getting one penalty. And let's be honest, the call was right, but if VAR had gone against us in that moment, I don't think anybody would have been particularly surprised. So, slightly different in another way, and maybe we end up with no penalty at all. I was not hopeful that he would score it, and after he did, I wasn't particularly hopeful that it would lead to much.
Yeah, it's weird because I said to a guy that the chap who I sit next to, it feels like sometimes we in the stadium can feel momentum ebbing and flowing, but sometimes it feels like the team doesn't, because when we're on the front foot, then all of a sudden the pace will slow down and our purple patch ends because we've decided it has, not because of any particular instance. But we did kick on, and obviously we got the equaliser through, Marshall Manetzi, I think, didn't know too much about it when it came to him. He got his head on the end of Bellegarde pretty much, well, he won't have got the assist, but he did a lot of the work to get that goal. And that felt like, of all of the players on the pitch, especially in the second half, I think Bellegarde was one of the few who felt like he might be unlocking something, even though he might have held onto the ball a little longer than most, I think, around wanted to. And it was kind of just have a shot or do something with it. But he had a little bit of spark that I think Wolves needed at that moment in the game.
Yeah, that's right. And that was when I started to have hope, which, as we all know, that's what kills you. Mm-hmm. But it reminded me of the periods where Vitor actually had control over all of this narrative. And, I wasn't particularly worried at the outgoings of Cunha and Ryan Aït-Nouri because as long as we could, replace them adequately, which we all know how that went. But, we went through a good period without Cunha. And a lot of that was down to getting the best out of players like Bellegarde, and especially Bellegarde. But he clearly hasn't done that. But yeah, that's what gave me a bit of hope, was that if he can start to find, Bellegarde as an outlet to make certain things happen, we actually had a foothold in the game at that point. Probably halftime came a bit too early.
It was a strange time towards the end of that second half, because I think a lot of fans were rightfully very, very annoyed at everything prior to Wolves getting back into the game. But then at 2-2, and the momentum you think would be in the home team's favour, then it gets to the point where I think that felt like the crowd didn't really know what to kind of think at halftime, and no top bins wins is going to change that either. So unfortunately, Luke, from your point of view, going into that second half, how were you feeling? Were you feeling hopeful? Were you feeling it's all going to the house of cards is going to come crashing down? What was your thoughts at halftime?
Win fucking shit. Literally, like, no, going into half time, obviously you're hoping to turn it round. And we didn't actually start the second half too bad. I thought we started okay. I thought to be fair, for the whole of the second half, we wasn't, well, apart from the last fucking 30 seconds. We did okay. The ball, majority of the play was in the Burnley half, but again, we're just toothless up front. Like, there's no quality. There's no one with that cutting edge to open up a defence, play a clever pass. You know, I think we're sort of just hopeful of crosses into the box and set pieces. That's what it feels like. It seems like we really struggle to turn the opposition defence around, whereas the opposition seem to be able to turn us around quite easily and find holes within, between the lines and whatnot. We just seem really easy to play against, and when we're attacking, we just seem like we don't really know what we're doing. And again, that goes back to the identity of the team and the philosophy and all of that. It's just a mess. It's an absolute mess. But the concern for me is, and like the comments are saying, we can talk about VP and his tactics and his signings until the cows come home. That is, it's not the problem. Well, it is the problem. It's just a small part of the bigger problem. You know, we let's just say, okay, Pereira gets sacked now. What's going to change? We might get lucky with a new manager bounce. We're still going to have the same players. These same players who today, for me, showed zero bravery. When we're in possession, no one showing for the ball. No one wants to take any accountability. I felt like Gomez showed a little bit when he came on, to be fair. I mentioned this before the season even started. The fractures between the fans and the team and the fans and the club, and now what looks like the team or certain players and the manager and the coaches, and everything just seems a mess.
Yeah. Well, Gav, let me throw a hypothetical to you, though, to maybe add a bit of balance to Luke's point.
Yeah.
Does the right manager get better out of this squad? And does the right manager motivate this squad? And does the right manager make substitutions and tactical changes within a game to inspire the team and give them and breed confidence? Essentially, what I'm saying is, I believe that there are squads in this division that are worse than us that are performing better. And with the right structure, motivation, tactics, we could be in a different position. But do you agree? Do you disagree? Where do you take on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I know the angle that Luke's coming from, and to be honest, that is the source of the issues at the club. I think in regards to, what we can do on the field, I think Pereira's got at the end of the day, he's got a lot to be accountable for, in my opinion. I think in the second half, having got back into the game 2-2, starting the second half, we should have had all the momentum. I think as soon as the second half started, I think Burnley had the ball again, I'm pretty sure, and they were putting us on the back foot, if I can remember correctly. But for me, I think my biggest gripe with Pereira at the minute is the lack of usage or game time for Lopez. For me, he's a player that he should be bringing on. I don't know why he's not bringing him on. I don't know what he's doing wrong in training. If he's not there physically, he hasn't got the ability to defend. I don't know what it is. But having been 2-0 down against Burnley, going into the second half, being on the front foot, that was a perfect opportunity to get him on the pitch and to give us the front foot in the game. And for whatever reason, he just completely disregards him. Tolu's hit and miss just because you got Strand Larson up there. But for me, Lopez that is the biggest question mark at the moment. I mean, you can question other things like I think Manetti wasn't that bad today, to be honest, out of all the players on the pitch. But like, not starting João Gomez, I think when he came on, he made a big impact. that's two people straight away that you should have been starting, in my opinion, Lopez and Gomez. So just to go back to your question, I do feel like there is a manager out there that can get the best of these players. I think the only hard part is trying to find out what manager that's going to be.
Mm.
Well, it'll be the same issues again, because the new manager will probably, let's say he'll get backed in January, we'll fuck about in the summer again, then we're playing catch up, start of next season, come January again, we'll just throw a load of money at it in the hope of it keeps us up. Again, for me, like the thing I'd rather hear more so than Pereira's philosophy or identity is, what's Fosun's? What's your 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10-year plan? Let me see your vision, because obviously we don't know what's going on behind closed doors at the club, but what is the plan for Fosun and this football club? Like, where do they want us to go? What do they want us to look like in 5 years' time?
I think they've already come out and said, though, haven't they? 70s is the aim and the expectation every single season, and it's come out this evening, hasn't it? That was the case. They weren't banking on Sunderland, Leeds, and Burnley getting as many points as they have. They were banking on them being the free to come up, being the relegation fodders, and going back down. All of a sudden, they haven't done as badly as they thought they were going to do, and now they're running around Molineux panicking now, aren't they? Thinking, okay, those are the three teams we had scheduled and we had targeted that we were going to be guaranteed 100% better than from before the ball was kicked straight away. Now all of a sudden, you're trying to find another three teams. Luckily, West Ham looks like another team that's going to be in and around our level. Forest might pull themselves out. After that, you're probably struggling.
I think, but that to me, then just look how much naivety that shows by the people in charge of this football club, man. Like, it's really concerning.
I mean, that's exactly it. Because the thing that I want to resist is like that framing that Jeff Shee is somehow good at business. There's like for years been this idea that, he doesn't know football, but at least he knows business. And if he wants to cut things here or there, up the ticket prices, then he's just being a good businessman. But the decisions over the past several years have shown that he's not even good at business. Even if they were looking to sell, why not paint the stadium to make it look any good to a potential buyer? And I had, to abuse myself after watching that game, I was re-editing that interview he did with the club. And for him to sit there and say, don't worry about these players who don't have Premier League experience. Raul, Neves, Jota, none of them had Premier League experience when they came in. Just how can you say that and look at the squad that we had even last year, which was successful enough to stay up? But to look at the two squads and to say that there's no difference there is patently absurd. And it's just, they're on the verge of making potentially the biggest, or Jeff is making the biggest, worst business decision of his life, which is not backing the team well enough to stay up now. And, as you all have talked about.
It's a great point, Dan. I think we're going to go and have a very, very short break just to allow us to catch our breath. But I think what we're going to talk is in the second half is talk about the squad holistically, talk about Vitor and his future, and then talk about Fosun as a whole as we build up to what I think might be a very crazy week in the history of Wolves. We'll just go to a very, very short break and we'll be back with you in just a moment. Welcome back to Wolves Fancast. We are covering, of course, the Wolves Burnley game. Just want to give a shout out to our sponsors and who are in association with the Sports Social Podcast Network, FCQuiz.app, and the Boston Coffee and Vending Company. So, gentlemen, I want us to talk about the squad as a whole then, because we're in the position that we're in. Nothing is changing that presently. But I want to talk about the squad, and I want to talk about a few individuals within that squad and just kind of get the feeling around the room, really, about how these players are performing at this moment in time. Greg, I want to come to you about Strand Larsen. At the end of the game, he, I don't know if it was like aggressively responding to a fan in the way that Jose Sarr had done in a game not that long ago. But at any moment in time, I think the fans, with the way that they feel, it felt heated. But he cut a frustrated figure in the game.
Yeah.
I think he tried to buy fouls that didn't pan out for him in the ref. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing that he tried to do that. I think that's part of the hold-up game. I think that's part of what he's there to do and didn't work for him. And he's getting a lot of stick for the fact that he throws his arms up to motivate the crowd. What motivates the crowd are goals, and he's not scoring them at the moment by a penalty. What's your view at the moment on Strand Larsen? People are calling out for Tolu to play, but is that because he's the shiny new toy? Whilst Strand Larsen isn't scoring, we know what he's like when he's on form, and he attracts that high offer from Newcastle. What are your thoughts on him and his status in the squad at the moment?
Okay, so I'll cover the incident at the end of the game first, and then I'll talk more about his general performance. I think at the end of the game, him going over to the crowd, I am in the South Bank, and it certainly wasn't the same as Sarr. So I think he was genuinely perplexed as to the reaction that he got and the squad got at the end of the game. And I think that he was kind of, and that was where I saw it. So I was pissed, right? That game, he went off and he was having a go, and that was clear as day, right? He wasn't happy about what was being said. Strand Larsen, as I watched him at the end of the game, he was concerned. He couldn't work it out why the fans were behaving the way they were behaving. And I think he felt, again, as kind of Luke said, as the captain for the week, let's call it, he felt obliged that he needed to go over and at least try and address it or understand and have a conversation. And we all know trying to do that with the South Bank after that, it was probably not the cleverest idea, and probably should have just kind of said it and got away. And he didn't. And I think that, for me, is the challenge there. I think the other issue that I see for Strand in terms of his general play, I think he needs to be more physical. Yes, I agree, Matt, totally about listen, it's a game where you can buy fouls, win fouls, and play the game a bit. I agree and accept that. And I think he was a bit unfortunate with the referee in terms of that. I think what we're seeing is that he's got no one to really play off or with, if I'm honest. And I think that's the difference. Last season, he could play off Cunha. So Cunha was in and around, and he got a player of ability to play against and create chances with. This season, he hasn't got that. He's not playing off Manetzi. Manetzi's around to try and pick up anything. He's not playing off of Bellegarde, and I think that's his problem. He's not going to go and get in the channels. He's not going to beat players for pace. So I think he's kind of struggling, and I think that's the issue there for Lowe. And as you've put as Max has commented there, they need a proper 10 around them. And I think we're going to see the same with Tolu. Now, the thing with Tolu is we haven't seen enough of him to actually give us an opinion as to whether he's a better option or a decent alternative option. He gets 5 minutes, 10 minutes when generally, let's be honest, we're chasing the game. And the game's quite fragmented and we're just throwing balls in. So I couldn't give you an opinion as to whether Tolu is the answer or not. He probably deserves that. So at least we can formulate that opinion. But I think that, he's an unknown. Perhaps that happens midweek against Chelsea, and let's be honest, that's going to feel like a bit of a dead rubber anyway. So we might as well throw him in the mix and see what happens there. But I think that's the problem. I think Larsen is now struggling to plough a furrow on his own with no out ball, no option, no one in and around him. And I think that's
well put. I think it's really well put, and I want to try and keep it, this as balanced as possible. The chat's asking for it, and Danny, I'm afraid you're going to have to be the man to answer the question about Hwang here, because there's a real discourse about Hwang. It's so extreme. There's no middle opinion on him. It's really extreme. And when he came on today, I felt he was quite invisible. But I think he's asking to be played in a position that I don't feel suits his skills, and I think he's an easy target for criticism, and I think it falls into the mold of some of the frustrations around esports. And there's this rhetoric about he's there to sell shirts and everything else, but we have seen Hwang played in a position and at times be unplayable for Wolves. but it just doesn't seem to work for him whenever he gets minutes on the pitch, does it, at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I was told as recently as last season that it was written into Gary O'Neill or Vitor's contract that he had to play him a certain number of minutes. That was until we went on a 6-game winning streak and Quang barely played. But yeah, his first few touches were right on the sideline. And we know that he plays his best football within the width of the goal. I just I can't watch anymore as we pass the ball to him on the touchline and he tries to find a way out of this. When we know that what we want to see is receive the ball in the box, take a shot. He's good at that. And so that's a great example of how the squad has been completely unbalanced, but then you also, can't overlook the decisions that Vitor Pereira is making, where you're really not getting the best out of these players who can make a difference when given the right chance and the right role.
Yeah, well put. It's frustrating to see, but I think this is the problem what good is it hyperfixating on the past, right? But when you had Jotas and your Netos and you had your wide players that were explosive, but actually had delivery and everything else, it feels like we're trying to play to a type. We're trying to play to a style that just doesn't suit. Doesn't suit the players that we have currently. That's how it feels. I mean, we did play. Going back to the game, earlier on today, it did feel like we were playing kind of with a lot more crossing into the box. Which, when you got two big beam poles on the pitch, is exactly the right thing to do. But the delivery wasn't there always. In terms of that, Gav, from your point of view, obviously, Andre went down the tunnel when he was substituted. No injury, nothing like that. Went straight down the tunnel in a World Cup year or building up to the World Cup season. You know what I mean? He must be incredibly frustrated because both him and his, fellow countryman, Joe Gomez, they're not guaranteed starters for their country, especially if they're on the back of this. Where do you think he is fitting in? Because on paper, he starts or plays in the majority of games in a team that hasn't won a Premier League game in 9 and has 2 points on the board this season. So does he take some of the blame for you? Is he or not?
No, not really, in my opinion. I think, one man can't, affect the whole performance of the team. And I think for the most part, he hasn't been bad. I thought today he was actually one or two misplaced passes, but for the whole, he was pretty good, to be honest. I think just going back onto the point that you mentioned about the call-ups, it's a shame, because he came over to England. He was a guaranteed starter for Brazil, wasn't he? Even for Fluminense, he was starting every week every time they played. For Brazil, he was in the squad all the time. Now all of a sudden he's come over here to progress his career, and he might not even make the squad. So in theory, coming to us with a step backwards. But what's that going to show for any player that's coming into the club now? Before we used to be such a good project. Neto would get his first call up for Portugal. Costa Cavaleiro, Costa scored on his Portugal debut against Scotland, whilst being a Wolves player. You know what I mean? And all these little things. Neves making his Portugal debut for Wolves. We were a club where you could come to us, shine, and progress. Now you're coming to us and you're going backwards. So I'm dreading January, to be honest, when we're looking at trying to recruit players to try and save us, because nobody's going to want to come.
Yeah, but by January we'll be planning for the Championship anyway.
Yeah, but that's another question, isn't it? Who's going out of the squad? Nobody's going to want to stay. All these players, as much as I like them, and they don't really cause us any issues, and we haven't exactly got the Johnsons and the O'Haras of the world. They've all these players are going to have an ego. Not one of them is going to end up staying here. Maybe Sam Johnson and Doc. Everyone else will be gone.
For me now, it feels like we need that rebuild again. Remember the old young and hungry days? I feel like that's what we need. It needs a complete reset, and the squad for me needs an overhaul.
But it's like I said earlier, though, what we've brought in wild cards and we've brought them in late, right? And gone, right, let's mold this together and see what happens. The one thing that we were screaming out for, which we had previously when we bought Dawson in, and we'll forget obviously the latter end of his Wolves tenure, but at the start, we need players who've played in the Premier League, that understand it, that have experienced, and potentially British players that understand the culture a bit more. If that, at this moment in time, you look at Everton, people like Dewsbury Hall, that are in, even Burnley today, they've got Kyle Walker. I know that's a local hometown thing as well, but right, he's an experienced Premier League right back, and towards the end, he was doing all the shithousery on the sideline for the throw-ins and all that kind of stuff, right? And that, we haven't got that. We don't have that at all in our team, right? We don't have someone that goes, right, this is what we need to do. And as you said earlier with Strand Larson, with the cheerleading and all this, that needs to be introspective rather than just trying to get the fans to bounce off. You've got to build yourselves in and work that way. And that's the problem. We go back to the leadership thing, that you nail the point, and the captaincy, right? And the captain of the week and all this kind of stuff. And that's where we've got the problem. We don't have that. And it stands out. And we've brought in players late. I mean, again, we've brought in a new first choice left back and a new first choice right back. They're both on the bench, right? So that's not working. I think both of them end up staying because they're championship players, by the way. So I think you do keep a few more Gav just because no one else in the Premier League will play them. But you go and go, well, where are we? And this is it. We don't have that. We and that's what that's what we were missing. That's what we brought in, and we haven't got that. We don't have those. And if you look at the players we brought in, I know, like Danny, you said at the start about like Neves, right, and not having Premier League experience. No, but he was a captain in the Champions League, right? Whereas we're getting players at the French league, the Belgian leagues, right, mid-table teams, and go, right, let's see if they can recreate that in the Premier League. And we all know the scope. You look at the European results, right, and the difference between the Premier League teams. They're winning 5, not all of them, but there's 5-1s and all sorts in there. So you can see the standard. And we're just trying to pull them in at the last minute and go, can we have it? And that, again, smacks of a lack of a plan. And that, Luke, you were saying, and at the top, what's the plan? What's the strategy? 1, 3, 5, there isn't. Or if there is, it's probably written on the back of a cigarette packet. Let's be honest. An old school reference, probably a vape packet these days as opposed to a cigarette one.
Well, I was going to say, would it be on a beer mat? But Vitor Pereira hasn't had a drink now for.
Mate, can you imagine going out in Wolverhampton? I tell you, I'm going to lynch him. Just string him up. I don't know about anything else.
Well, that segues us nicely. Thank you for talking about Vitor. And, we'd be doing a disservice not to talk about going back to the scenes at the end of the game. So to paint a picture for those that hasn't seen it, Strand Larson has come over with the rest of the team. And there's been an ill-tempered, but not, there's no violence or anything like that with people in the South Bank. And Vitor comes over, and then a really bizarre, almost kind of like punches his own hand kind of action in front of the South Bank, and there were chants, and that's where it became more ugly. Now, again, I want to bring some balance here, and Luke, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but there's a manager here that instills time and time again about the relationship with the fans, and I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt in the sense that he's trying to motivate and everything else, but this just wasn't it, was it? I think there was an element of reading the room about this scenario, and I don't think he's done that here.
I think it's done now. I really do. I think even if he was to win the next 10 games, I think the fans are still in the back of their mind think, nah, fuck this guy now, man. It's done. That's just how it feels to me. I mean, because I can read the future, I sat my season ticket off, and I'm so fucking glad. And I genuinely feel sorry for everyone who's still having to go and sit through that every other week. It's just not good enough. And again, the relationship between the team and the fans and the coaches, and it's fractured. It's ruined. It's just a whole mess. And he can. I mean, I think these comments after the game about the fans, I think they're piss poor. I think he's getting into the realm of where he's just chatting shit. Somebody mentioned in the comments that they compared Vitor and this team to how we were under Dean Saunders. And you know what? It actually does feel a little bit like how we were and the results we was getting and the performances when we was under Dean Saunders.
Right, at least Dean Saunders drew his first game. But so I've got the comments for those that are listening to this. I'm going to just read out those comments from Vitor after the game as you brought them up. 2 months ago, they sang my name, but now I understand without results, it's football. Now they sing my name to sack me. This is football. If I was a supporter, I would feel proud of my team because they worked and showed the mentality, ambition, and spirit to win. Danny, I'll come to you on this one. Looking at the chances created in the game, actually, I do think Wolves probably did enough to draw the game at the very least, because there were world-class saves from the keeper for Burnley. Arias's free kick, world-class save at the end from a shot by Santi. There was enough there, but that isn't a mitigation for where we are in the season. But comments like that won't help Vitor's case either with it, because nobody wants to be told how to feel, especially in a time where we're in this position in the league, where I think the stat was today, we were only the third club in history of the top flight to not win a game in their first 9. It feels those comments from Vitor just to be completely off, out of touch.
Sorry, Matt, just to add, that's in consecutive seasons as well.
Right.
Okay, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, where to start? I completely agree that the comments are not helpful. I think I saw someone on Twitter react to them by saying it's not 100% your fault, Vitor, but it's 0% the fans' fault. So, it's one of those things where you really can't hide in those scenarios. And I think that I respect what he's saying about, when you see the team giving their all. And, I think that effort does mean a lot, especially to this fan base. I think if we were seeing that every single week for this whole season and thought we were just getting unlucky, I mean, we've been there 2 or 3 seasons ago. I remember it was like a weekly discussion topic, what VAR result had gone poorly for us. That hasn't been the case. We saw that people were trying then, but we were just getting unlucky. But now it's like, this might have been like the maximum effort that this group can give, or that Vitor can give in terms of planning out the game. And what does it give us? At best, like maybe we deserved a draw against the third promoted team that we've played. And it's like, I totally agree with him that I think this fan base can get behind a team that, wants to show what they're about in front of the fans and will give their all, even if they end up coming up short. But at this point, after 9 games now, it's not good enough. And the fans aren't chanting for him to lose his job just because they don't like him. It's just they're recognizing the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, a great comment here. He responded to the fans booing him by saying the players worked hard. What's one got to do with the other? Gav, from your point of view here, I can't think of many times where a manager who has got from the home support the chance of you're getting sacked in the morning to be able to turn it around. It seems almost unfathomable that would be the case. And obviously, we will beat Chelsea in the cup because it's doomed to happen. But it just doesn't feel like that's a possibility, or does it? Football is a fickle game. If all of a sudden results turn around, can it be saved? I don't know. What's your head saying on this?
I think it's hard because I think the issue is, if you saw the performances, but we were losing games. So let's say we were being edged out here and there. You take the positive out and you can see the hope. At the minute, we're not creating that many chances really. We're conceding shit goals, sloppy goals, I'm not seeing enough in the performances to suggest that it will be turned around. I think that, I mean, I don't know if you're going to pull the fixture, our next fixtures up. I can't see where the next win's coming from, the way we're currently playing. Like I said, if we were playing well, let's say we were all over Burnley and the keeper's made five one-on-one saves, and we've had 2 VAR decisions go against us, and we still lost today. You'd be like, okay, we've seen enough there where we created a lot of chances, we split them open, we look like we can score goals and create chances. At the moment, we're nowhere near that level. So to me, I can't see where the next win's coming from. I'll be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I can understand kind of the mentality of that and the fan base, and it's completely understandable. And finally, to kind of wrap up the show tonight, obviously the Fosun and Jeff Shee was subject of chance throughout the game, and we're in a position where the game plan, as it has seemed to have been for maybe 2/3 now of our Premier League stay in this stint, Greg, that game plan just isn't working. It's circling the drain of asset stripping to the point, but we've done enough to stay up, panic buying maybe, and spending more than you'd like to in January. But it feels that won't be enough now. And Greg, I'd love to know from your point of view, is there anything now that Fosun can do in the short term to turn around to give us a fighting chance come January?
Yes, Al.
Will mean nothing now, though. Like
I didn't even look. It was just the power of the mind. Then just went.
They could sell tomorrow, but that squad remains until then.
Yeah.
And will any owner that comes in tomorrow sack a manager that has just signed a new deal and all the financial implications that come with that?
The problem you've got with Fosun and selling Wolves is the whole, and I've seen it mentioned in the chat earlier, is the bloody esports and all this malarkey, right? Which has got all the Wolves branding, right? They're probably going to want to keep that. So then you've got to kind of buy the club, but then license that to Fosun or something. So this is a problem we've got, right? We're not just a footballing entity. Forget all the music and all the other crap they've tried to start up, Wolves records and all that back in the day, right? They've now created a brand in China for esports and that, and that's there. And this is the problem they've got, is decoupling that. So we're not a simple transaction to buy, right? So that's the first challenge we've got. I think beyond that, I think the problem now is you sack Vitor, who you're bringing in, right? And there probably are managers out there that are good enough to make us a better team until January, but they're not going to come to this club, right? The better ones aren't going to turn up. So that's your first problem. The managers that we would need aren't going to come into this because it's a basket case, right? So that's your problem, right, with Fosun. Jeff he don't care, right? That guy, fair play to him, right? He's got like the Teflon shoulders, or he's Kevlar plated, right? Because he does not care, right? So he does not give a monkeys what we're going to say, right? We could be calling him a wanker and everything for the whole 90 minutes. He ain't going to care, right? He'll just sit there and watch the game, right? So I think from a Fosun perspective, what do we do? I don't think anything changes. I think we stumbled. I think that, like you said at the intro, Matt, we've been circling the drain, right? And we've pulled a few rabbits out the hat last couple of seasons. Unfortunately, I think this time it's a bridge too far. And like we've talked about, they assumed the other 3 teams were going to be as bad as those 3 teams because they don't understand the industry. They didn't understand the transfers that were coming in and all the stuff that we've talked about. And now's their time. This is going to be our time. I've already told my lad to get himself ready because we're going to be doing Preston and Derby and all of those next season, right? Back on those from when I used to go in the 90s, right? So that's where we will be next season. I've already braced him for it. And that's going to be our journeys next season, because the players that we need to get out of this aren't going to come, because I think, like you said, Luke, we'll be too far adrift come January. I mean, how far adrift are we already? 5-6 points already?
I think it's more than that.
Is it? So
I don't know.
You know what I mean? We're into. I think for me, and someone put it in the chat earlier. The bigger question is: are we going to get past Derby's 12 points? 7
points when you include that goal difference as well.
And You know what I mean? It's like playing with snookers right now. So I think this is the time. I think you look at Andre. I think he's nailed on for January. I think he's going to be angling for a move. I just, there's been 2 or 3 times this season where I think it was one of the games. Was it one of the cup games where he kind of went straight down the tunnel, didn't come to see the fans? I think it feels to me that he had probably a deal or an option in the summer, and we stopped him, and I think that's kind of fallen.
Didn't Pereira call him out as well?
Yeah, well, he called out Jack Gomez and then obviously dropped him. So yeah, I just you can just see it, and then you start, it all starts to keep going. It keeps going, and for me, I think this is the season, guys. As much as it pains me to say it, I just think this is it. I think we've played the game. We've gone to the casino, and this time we've come up short.
Yeah, I get it. No, I hear what you're saying. I'm trying to add some balance where I can here.
No, and you're right. I think we need to call it out. We need.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just to kind of circle on, just to wrap up the show, and listen, we appreciate everybody in the chat. It's been an absolute melting pot of kind of opinions and some funny comments and everything that's going on. Obviously, we've got the Carabao Cup to contend with coming up as well. The game that at this point in time, kind of nobody needs or wants really, in the sense of having to. I mean, it's an opportunity for fringe players to be able to show the manager what they can do, and not necessarily pressure off, because actually the spoils of winning this game get you into, is it the quarterfinal, the game after this in the League Cup. So from that point of view, there's still a lot to play for in that game, and winning is a mentality as well, isn't it? That any kind of result, you'll take any result, no matter where you can get it at the moment, but it's not looking too great. But Wolves Fancast are the place to be if you want to get any of the as much up-to-date info as you can. The socials have everything on there that happens within Wolves and the and the fan base. And if anything happens over the next few weeks, fan base will be there for it. So make sure you are liking and subscribing to be able to get all of the alerts. Gents, it's been really good to have you on this evening, and I think it's been good and cathartic to kind of get some of these comments of our chest. Thank you to everybody that's been in the comments, anyone to listen to this as well. We'll be back to discuss the upcoming Chelsea game later in the week as well. So Danny, Gav, Luke, Greg, thank you very much for joining us. I hope everybody at home enjoyed it. We will catch up with you next time, and we'll speak to you soon.
Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?